scripture.
Recording in progress.
Isaiah. Heard about this?
Heard about this?
I got some feedback. How's this sound? Okay, I'm good now. All right. Ninth chapter of Isaiah. This is 800 years before Christ was born. Isaiah is doing this prophecy because at the time, Israel, like in so many opportunities, they were having a tough time. They were being persecuted now by the Assyrians, and life was just not good for folks, and it was a difficult time. So Isaiah comes on the scene here, and he prophesies, for unto us a child is born, he says, unto us a son is given, and his government, and the government shall be upon his shoulders, and his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and peace, there shall be no end upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to order it and establish it with judgment and with justice, which henceforth, even forever, the zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform this. The Lord sent a word unto Jacob, and it hath lighted upon Israel. That's Christmas morning. That's what he saw 740 years before Christ was here. And it was designed to encourage so many discouraged people at the time, in the difficult time there was. Maybe not unlike today. I mean, we live in a blessed time, and we live in somewhat of a discouraging time, because every day you hear something that's tragic, something that occurs because people maybe just don't have this baby Jesus in their life. We don't know how long we're going to have to wait. There were two people at the time of this prophecy. We've heard about them before, just recently, an old man named Simeon and another old lady named Anna. Simeon was, I don't know, can't remember how old he was, but he was really up in age, and he was waiting to die. And the Lord spoke to him and said, you know what? You're not dying until you see this prophecy get fulfilled, this baby get born. And he was in the temple when they brought Jesus there. And it's amazing that when, even as a baby, Jesus knew, the people knew that Jesus was the Messiah. He was somebody special, that came from God. The wise men knew it when they wandered in the middle of nowhere to find this manger, to find this baby, and it's just something that within Jesus, once you have his spirit with you, you know who he is. So Simeon, picks up this baby in the temple. And I'm sure that Mary is wondering, well, who is this guy and what he's doing with my kid? And he picks him up and he says, now this is it. He says, Lord, now lettest thou thy servant depart in peace according to thy word, for mine eyes have seen thy salvation, which thou hast prepared before the face of all people, a light unto the Gentiles and the glory of the people of Israel. So he's doing a blessing on this baby, and I would imagine, according to the way things go, he probably passed away shortly thereafter, because God said your life was going to continue until this day happens. While that's going on, there's a woman named Anna who lives in the temple. She's 84 years old. She was married for 7 years, and her husband died, and she was a widow for 77 years. And she committed her life to live in the temple and to serve in the temple, and the most importantly, to fast and pray for this baby that was going to show up. And she says, and she coming in that instant gave thanks likewise unto the Lord, and spake of him to all them that looked for redemption in Jerusalem. Two hopeful servants who listened to Isaiah's prophecy and happened to be in the right place at the right time to see it being fulfilled. They had hope in a dismal time. And I guess my question to all of us are, what's our hope? Are we still hoping? Are we still waiting? Well, we don't have to wait, because 740 years after Isaiah's prophecy, it was fulfilled with Jesus being born today, 2022 years later. He's here. He came, he lived a life just like you and I, a normal life. He came as a baby, and grew into a child, and then a young man, and had a career like we've had to have, and all that stuff. And then he was about his father's business, as he told his mom when they couldn't find him that time. Remember, he was in the temple, and even Mary, who was blessed with, an understanding beyond belief about the conception of this baby she was going to have, and who he was. And I suppose that as he grew older, she began to realize that he was a different kind of kid, and this prophecy that, and what the angels spoke to her and Joseph about was, be prepared, because this is not going to be a normal life for you anymore. And they had to deal with raising him as a parent. And I'm sure Jesus probably had to be scolded from time to time, because he was a normal kid and did what normal kids do, and as he grew older, though, Mary and Joseph began to understand what their role is in raising this kid going forward. And then we find that as Isaiah talks about who this individual is, this wonderful counselor, who's the mighty God, the everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. A lot of stuff rolled up into this little person that was there. And I want to talk about just the first two, the wonderfulness and the counseling part of what Isaiah said in his prophecy. We think about the wonderful part, and again, the conception was just wonderfully miraculous, something that never happened before and will never happen again, because it was Jesus. And God has this plan sometimes that this confounds our ability to understand how and why. But Jesus came in a wonderful way. And as he grew, his Father in heaven gave him that ability and power to heal people. He not only healed the blind and made the lame to walk or the leper be whole, but he raised people like Lazarus from the dead. Awesome wonderfulness about this man, that, people needed him for his power. And then when he gave it to them and gave them what they needed, quite often people just kind of wandered away and just forgot about it, because things were fine in their life again. And I don't know if Jesus was disappointed in those moments or not. I think, again, he knew people, and he knew what the expectations were, and he knew what they were going to do. But beyond, the wonderfulness of his conception and even coming to earth, and the fact that he had all this awesome power to heal and raise people from the dead, he was an amazing teacher. Part of his wonderfulness was his ability to teach people, like the parables, in simple ways that they can relate to what he was telling people they had to be, they had to do, they had to become in that situation. But his teaching kind of was counterintuitive to the mindset of the people, even for us today. I mean, you take some of the things that he had talked about. For instance, blessed are they that mourn, he says. How can that be? How can it be blessed while you're going through mourning? It's just two different diametrically opposed feelings and emotions. But he has given us a lesson in that Sermon on the Mount on how we need to kind of live our life in such a way of complete trust, and that mourning is a part of life, but we're blessed even through the mourning that we go through. Another one that he told us, which I know that we have struggles with. He says, love your enemies and do good to those who hate you. No way. You can't do that. It's an eye for an eye, right? That's the way it was taught in the Old Testament days. I mean, you do something to me, I'm going to do something to you. But Jesus came to teach another way. He said, you need to show love, like I show love. You need to show patience, like you show patience. In Matthew, he says in the Sermon on the Mount, be ye perfect as my Father in heaven is perfect. And that's the only way we're going to cope through the teachings of Jesus, is that we strive to be perfect. We're not going to be perfect. He knows that as he says this, but he's saying, you know what? Raise the bar a little bit in your life. Try to become more aware of who I am and who my Father in heaven is in your life. Because through that, all things will work together for good. And I guess the last wonderful part of Jesus is the fact that he lived this life like we do in this life, being probably disappointed sometimes and just not fulfilled in some things, but he was special because he knew what his purpose was when he came here. He came that he could teach us the right way to live. And he also died because that's what his Father in heaven said your mission is, that as you die, you'll resurrect. And all these people who believe in you have that eternal hope as well, that when we all kind of pass from this life, we have that opportunity to reside in an eternity in heaven with him. That's a great gift. That's a great Christmas gift that we have, that we have to remember is there for us as we continue to strive to follow his ways in his life, in our life. That's the wonderful part of Jesus in a nutshell. The other part I look at is his ability to counsel. He says he was a wonderful counselor. And in Isaiah's time, a counselor was an important person that gave guidance to the people on how to live their life. And Solomon was the benchmark in those days in terms of wise men who could counsel what needs to be done. But he said he came forth to give us a higher understanding of life. And it says here in Isaiah's prophecies again, he says, this also cometh forth from the Lord of hosts, which is wonderful in counsel and excellent in working. Jesus was the wisest of all counselors. In today's environment, I guess we have Dr. Phil. He's a counselor. And there used to be Dr. Oz, right? He was a counselor. And you can go anywhere anymore for mental health counseling, and all these people can help you through your situation. But you know what? None of those people can stand a chance with the counsel that comes from the Lord. And it's interesting where Dr. Phil and Dr. Oz and mental health counselors have to kind of dig into who we are and what our past is and what events have occurred to bring us to the point where we needed to get help for counsel. But the interesting thing about Jesus, the greatest counselor of all, is that he knows us. He doesn't have to dig into what our issues are and what our problems are. He knows what those are. In John, it says here, Jesus did not commit himself unto them because he knew all men and needed not that any should testify of man, because he knew what was in man. So, you know what? We don't have to struggle too much to let Jesus know what our problems are or what our needs are. As the scripture tells us that he knows us. He's just looking for us to come to him, to recognize that he's in our life. And if we can kind of submit, and if we can talk to the ability of giving over ourselves to him in all situations, all things work together for good, right? To those who love and serve the Lord. And you're going to hear this again a lot this year, so get prepared. One of the ways for us to cope with life is to trust in the Lord with all of our heart and lean not upon our own understanding. We acknowledge him in all of our ways, and he will direct our paths. Okay, that's probably the last time I'm going to say that in 2022, but get ready next year. And you might want to have a little calculator there. How many times Brother Walt said that? As I truly believe in the concept of that, as we trust in the Lord and don't lean upon our own understanding. Have the patience to wait upon the Lord, because he knows what your need is. He knows what my need is, or what it's going to be. And sometimes, like him, he had to go through a process that I'm sure was not very comfortable. I know it was not very comfortable. But he did it for us to show us that he trusted in his Father in heaven. And we need to trust not only in Jesus, but his Father in heaven. Because Jesus is sitting right next to him, right now. And he's looking at all of us and saying, okay, I know their need. I'm just waiting that maybe they call upon me, that they would trust in me just a little bit more. Don't try to understand things from your own perspective, but understand it that I know all things, I can do all things, and just have us remember in the past when we had our needs, and when we were wallowing around in despair and hopelessness, that he was there to get us through it. Your testimonies all say that. Mine is too. It's just that we got to remember earlier on in the struggle that we have in life that Jesus is there. When Mary's and the apostles went to that tomb to look for him, the angel sat there and he said, why are you here? He's not here. He said, he'll be out there in front of you. He's out in Galilee somewhere. Go find him. He knows where we're at too. We just need to take it right to the Lord. Like Paul said in Philippians, he says, be careful for nothing. He says, but in everything by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, make your requests known unto God. That was Jesus's purpose when he came on Christmas morning as a baby, and as he grew up in life, living life like you and I live it, with good days and bad days. But knowing that, we're only here for a bit. This is not the ultimate goal for us to live this life. Our ultimate goal is to live this life with him and our Father in heaven in eternity, and all of those that passed on before us. A concept we cannot comprehend. But Jesus says, don't worry about it. We got it covered. You just believe in me, believe in who I am, trust in me, stop thinking about how to fix the problem yourself, because you're only going to get more frustrated and probably end up having more problems than you had in the first. And Carrie and I had dinner with our girls and their families last night, and we went to Jennifer has a church over here. I can't remember something. It's one of those big community things, and huge facility, got a coffee bar, got a photo booth, and got all 10-piece rock and roll band, and a lot of noise and video things going on. It was nice, little over the top, but then the lead pastor came out to speak, and he was in his jeans and his sweatshirt and the appropriate attire for a Christmas service. But the guy made a lot of sense, and his message was right on. And his message was kind of simple when you put it down to the end. And that's what I'm going to close with here. His message is that we need Christmas, that we need Christ in our life. And he asked that question, do you know why you need Christ in your life? And the answer to that was, we need Christ in our life because he shows up. he will show up in our life. He was born on Christmas Day. Like I say, live this life that he can identify what we have to go through. But if you've got a need, you can rest assured that he will show up in your life. Maybe not in the timeline that we would like or expect. Because oftentimes we have to go through the struggle a little bit, to maybe clearly understand why that happens in the first place. But inevitably, Jesus shows up in our life. He's not in that tomb. The angel said he's out there and about. We have to just look for him. We need to bring him into our life. And we need to be thankful for the fact that that immaculate conception, generated an individual that knows us inside and out and can anticipate what our needs are. He's just looking for us to ask. He's just looking for us to come to him so he can do his marvelous and wonderful work in our life. So he can be the fulfillment of what Isaiah prophesied here. His name should be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. We need all that. And we have that all in Jesus Christ. So that's all I got to say about that today. So, Jeremy, if you've got any comments, Clifton, then we'll turn it over for you guys.
Did you want me to share that song, brother?
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that. Thank you. Yeah, we all know this song. I thought it was pretty appropriate for the day and the message, perhaps. So, yeah, if you can do that, Jeremy.
Okay. And it's certainly nice to share that day, this moment with you all. And Walt mentioned that many times when the Lord came, he said things that were unexpected, things that were very different from what people normally thought, and things like being blessed in mourning and loving your enemies. And I think that, there's so much of the world today that is looking to celebration and perhaps time with family and gifts, and maybe not thinking about this moment that we're in, because I know for us, perhaps you started your day with a nice breakfast or some gifts or things, but the highlight, I think, was getting together in the name of Christ and proclaiming him. And that really is what we look forward to. And the scripture and thought that keeps coming to my mind as Walt was speaking is change. The Lord came and he changed the world. He said things that were disruptive to the norms, and he changed our thinking. And for us, we're excited to have the opportunity, I think, to thank God for all that he does for us, and to proclaim him as the reason we have all these other things, and the reason we celebrate. And the scriptures that I think, some of them that speak about this, are those that talk about the cornerstone. Because really, as Walt was saying, the Lord came and he caused people to reshape their lives, to rethink and reframe everything that they knew around the Lord, and to make him the cornerstone. It says something about that in the Book of Mormon, and it also said it in many places in the Bible. And in Romans it says that the Lord laid in Zion a stone, and that it was we know that key stone that holds everything else into place. But the same stone is called a stumbling block, right? Because we have a choice. We can rebuild our lives around Christ as the corner, or we can reject that cornerstone. And that's what it says in 1 Peter. It says that the builders rejected the cornerstone. They went on with their lives in the same pattern. They didn't pause. They didn't change. They just moved on as though it hadn't happened, and they missed the point and the opportunity. And so I'm thankful today that we have the proper framework, the proper starting point and anchor in our lives to understand the meaning of this day. And each year, I think we try to rediscover that, reconnect with what this actually means in our lives. And we have such an opportunity to make the right choice and to let the Lord change our lives, to change everything for the better, even that unpleasant things, trials or enemies, conflict might turn into blessings. And that's really the power of God in our lives if we recognize it, if we allow it, if we change the way the Lord came to change the world. And so I know that we're blessed and we're really just in awe and gratitude for what God does in our lives. So we have a shorter meeting today, but we have still time to hear from maybe others, our brother Clifton, if he has thoughts or testimonies. So I'll turn it over to you. And I'm excited to hear how the Lord is manifesting himself and changing your lives. So may God bless you today.
I don't even have to say, but it was just I listened to Brother Walt. I was part of the Christmas program with South Carolina, and the very scriptures that Brother Walt read, that's what I read. And I wanted to go through the words, like he broke it down, but God said no. So I went a different way. And I like the way Brother Walt did it because God wanted me to hear what my brother had to say and how he tied the scriptures together and brought the message. And even as you said today, Jeremy, change. God has given us a choice. That and how blessed are we in the Church of Jesus Christ to have such a knowledge and understanding of God that he has given us, that we have faith that if we just try it, of a mustard seed, what we can do. So change is possible in anything that we do because we're serving the living God. And Brother Walt laid it out, all different things he has done, we can do. And so tears fill my eyes right now, just thinking about what God has given us and how much more he will bless us if we will be faithful and continue on. And this is for us to put on, to hide. We want everyone to share this gospel that we have. We want everyone to know the love of God in our life and that he may use us as an instrument to bring these things in. So I'm happy today that what God has done and continue to do. And Brother Walt, I wrote down, that's going to be my theme, lean not on your own understanding. I wrote it down. I'm going to have the scriptures, and that's going to be my theme every day. When I get up, I'm going to say that prayer, what God has given me, and go forth. So you continue to pray for me, and I pray for you as God gives us both strength.
Amen. Well, together, Cliff, between you and I can wear everybody out with that scripture, okay? We'll kind of do that.
It'll work for me.
All right.